Deep Dive Film School makes no claim of ownership of the film footage used in this episode. The film footage is owned entirely by the copyright holders. Also, we're going to spoil the hell out of this movie, so this is your warning. Welcome to Deep Dive Film School!
Oh, this week we're going to get into that one scene in Inglourious Basterds.
Let's dive on in. Alright everybody, I am Adam Sherlock.
And I'm Adam Pulcher.
And if you like what you see /here, please like and subscribe. You can find us in all those spaces and places where people find good media. We have festivals. We're in the middle of one right now. We also do punishment reviews. Got one of those coming up pretty soon. And then we have this lovely program, which is called That One Scene From.
Yes.
And this week we are doing what scene?
The opening scene of Inglourious Basterds.
That is right. The very first thing that we see.
I think we were debating, do we do the scene in the bar where it's, you know, this says a...
Three. Yeah,
that's good. This one has a bomb under the table moment very much like that scene.
Very much.
But this one is interesting. You know, you don't get a lot of 20-minute opening scenes that are just dialogue that also fly by. It doesn't even seem like it's 20 minutes.
No, not at all. So when you just said that, I was like, that thing's 20 minutes long? I had no idea.
Yeah, right?
You know, I remember seeing this movie.
Why did you want to choose this one over that one?
So, and this is why. Because while I love that scene, and I think that it's some of the...
It would have been an equal fun
conversation. Oh, yeah. Incredible bit of acting on the part of... Fassbender.
Oh, yeah.
Just being like, you know that he went and watched a bunch of scenes from Colonel Blimp. Because that's the kind of Brit that he's being.
That's
just
funny.
like, you know, damn good stuff, sir. Just like, it's this very particular kind of British guy. So there's that, which is fantastic. But I wanted to talk about that. I remember seeing this in the theater, and first of all, this sweeping landscape opening is just absolutely classic, right? I mean, it looks beautiful. It's the perfect, like, the farmer looks out and his daughter's like, "Father," you know, and you can see the dust because someone's coming down, and you go, God, that's everything.
And they move the sheet.
Yeah, I mean, it's so perfect. It feels like Once Upon a Time in the West, or The Searchers,
well, and you got
some
the
kind
Tarantino
of,
music in the credits, all that stuff.
For sure, there's all of that. But I remember when Christoph Waltz comes in and they sit down and they start speaking in German, I remember thinking I wasn't that interested. I felt like I actually had this nervous feeling of, Tarantino finally did it. He bit off more than he can chew, right? Total fucking period piece movie.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a grindhouse film or a kung fu flick or a gangster film. It's subtitled. I was like, shit, man, I don't know.
I will say this is probably one of my, well, not one of, but I mean, it's a good movie, but it's not one of my favorite Tarantino movies overall, though it does have some of his best scenes ever.
I agree with that. I just think it's interesting that, like, I remembered that gut-churning feeling of being like, he did it. He finally biffed it.
In the first scene?
Yeah, well, because it is subtitled, and, like, that's what he's known for.
Also, we don't know who Christoph Waltz is as an American audience.
We don't know any of this stuff, right?
This was his kind of first breakthrough.
And you have to think the movie right before this is Kill Bill, right?
Yep.
Which is, like, part of it's animated, and part of it, the camera is on the tip of a bullet going through somebody's head. Like, it is so all over the place and so action-packed that, like, even though he is known to be a talky director, I think we didn't know that he could do this. And so I was worried right up until they switched over to English, right? Now, there's a secondary interesting thing here. Because when they switch over to English, the first time you watch it, I was like, all right, now we're cooking. This sounds like a Tarantino movie. But then I was also like, oh, it's kind of a cop-out. Like, he knew he couldn't really write in subtitles. And it's not that at all by the time you finish the scene.
I was going to say, like,
it's fucking brilliant.
Yes.
But you don't know that the first time around. And you're like, why don't we speak in English? I think that'll be better. And I was like, oh, man, it's a fucking cop-out.
God damn it.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about that feeling because I was like, again, it's all based upon preconceived ideas that you have about that director.
Sure.
But I don't know. It's just a funny thought, you know?
That's interesting. Yeah. Obviously, we find out like the reason why he changes languages, and you know, like I love too that it begins. This is once upon a time in Nazi-occupied France.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's just funny, and just he went on to make Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Exactly.
All that stuff. So good stuff. But you know, the setup, the long take, just the wonderful and thoughtful dialogue for Hans Landa. And the character just of Christoph Waltz, like I said, being introduced to us as an American actor, like, holy fuck, like you watch this as anyone's first movie. Not this is his first movie. He has tons of other movies, but not
that we know him.
Yeah, yes, in a big American, you know, something that got big exposure, basically, right?
Well, and also that when speaking in German, he might as well just be whatever random, you know, Nazi from a Raiders of the Lost Ark movie. Like he just, I mean, he is German, so he's speaking in German, and he's doing a great job of like the Papers, Please kind of character.
Sure, yeah.
But once he switches over to English, he's kind of a little dandy. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's just kind of like, it's like he's like a little effeminate Werner Herzog. Like he's delightful. Yeah. Even though he's this like terrifying Jew hunter, you're also just like, kind of spellbound by him, right?
And that's the genius of this scene to me, is that, and honestly, just his character as a whole, because he has that whole, I love rumors. Facts are so misleading. You know, like stuff like that.
He's like moving in his chair.
And he's an excited Nazi. Yeah. And, you know, like, and just the fact that you can paint, you know, it's kind of what Jojo Rabbit did to a degree, right?
Yeah.
Like you have this Nazi symbol and what they represent behind everything.
And it's so powerful.
But then you make them like kind of charming, but you know why they're there, because they're trying to, and you know, and he knows everything already. Yes. He already knows everything.
So he's just toying with it. Yeah. Right? He's batting him about like a cat would with a mouse.
Playing, but so politely, so charming, and you know, you feel like he's becoming honest, and anyways, that's the great contrast and balance of his character, and the intro of that to me is worth talking about. So.
Completely, and I think, and then, and just when you think like, oh, we're gonna get to a more serious thing, because at first there is like, the tonal shift happens, and that kind of takes you by surprise once they start speaking English, and then there's a second tonal shift that happens when he is like, oh, I love rumors, and that kind of like charm to him, and you're like, this guy's so weird.
Why is this likable Nazi here?
And then he starts being more serious, right? And you're like, okay, and so you start leaning in, and then he pulls out that fucking pipe. Oh, that stupid pipe is amazing.
It's true. Like, obviously,
it's like this big.
Yeah, I mean.
It is so. I like when that happened. I was like, "Oh my god, come on! That's like a gag from a Pink Panther movie."
It is like, what is it doing in the middle of this Nazi-occupied France movie? Yeah, Pierre Lapetite is his name, right? And he's like, "Do you mind if I smoke?" And they do this whole thing with you know, how much, you know, oh, you're a dairy farmer. I would love to have some milk.
Yeah, it goes and gets the
ice
milk.
Cold milk, and boom, right out, fresh out of the, you know, whatever. And, you know, and you could see, like, he enjoys things and the pleasure. Even later when he eats, like, dessert or something, you see him just like, oh.
Yeah.
And that's maybe that side of him that you're talking about a little bit. And then, he's like, oh, you mind if I smoke? And he puts it in. He's like, but it's a total power play, right?
It tells you his pipe's like 5 times as big as the other guy's pipe.
Well, yeah, and they talk about him, like, do you know who I am? You know, the Jew hunter. Yeah. He's very proud of his name.
Yeah.
And he thinks like a Jew.
Yeah, that's why he's so good, is because he can think the way that a Jew does.
And compares them Jews to rats and all this stuff.
And you know what's interesting? I didn't even think about this until just now. I guess that's the other really masterful thing that I noticed in this scene that obviously Tarantino would go on to be known for so well. But you have to think like Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, really where he cut his teeth.
Sure.
That is from the perfect whirlwind that was 90s postmodernism in dialogue, right? 90s postmodernism in dialogue. So I'd say the reigning champs of that are movies like Seven, Fight Club, Pulp Fiction, Clerks definitely.
Yep.
right? And it was, and like even to the point where people were having Tarantino come in to do just like a shtick of that dialogue in other movies, right? You had
Robert Rodriguez in Desperado.
In Desperado, he did another one in that Destiny on the Radio movie about
right.
Top Gun. Yep. Like he was just like infamous for doing this kind of a thing, right? And a lot of people were like, well, it's just a postmodernist shtick. So when it came out like, oh, he's going to do a period piece that takes place in World War II, it's like, what the fuck are his characters going to talk about? Yeah. Betty Boop? Like, what's the cultural equivalency for Madonna's Like a Virgin? Like, you can't fucking do that. Like, he's going to be dancing with no shoes on, right? Like, there's no way. He can't do it. And instead, you go, no, he can have a Nazi wax philosophical about milk. Right? And it still completely works because it was never about pop culture references.
No, it was about the taste of finer things.
Right? Yeah. And just this understanding of like, oh, by the way that a person speaks, we can build out an entire character arc for them. And we don't need to have Superman. We don't need to have, Foxy Brown. Like, he could do that about anything. But I think it's funny because I think a lot of people thought for a long time he was a one-trick pony because it's like, oh, this is the only thing he knows how to talk about is his own shit. Mm-hmm. And for some people it was true, unfortunately, right? Kevin Smith, he really only can talk about fucking Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean...
it's fine, but...
Or write like that.
Yeah, like that. He can only have characters talk about Star Wars or their dicks. Mm-hmm. That's all he knows how to do. And that's fine.
It's pretty accurate.
But it's amazing to see that, like, this was really that turning point of, like, oh, shit, no, he can do this with any of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think Kill Bill before this, like you mentioned earlier, is another example of him evolving. But this is another evolution past that, right? That's maybe a mashup of Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction to a degree, right? Like,
the characters were still talking about comic books and old music,
still
and
having fun and doing all that stuff. And he's definitely great at that stuff. But it is fun to see him go do period pieces and stuff. And Hateful Eight is excellent. And there's some really, I don't know. I don't know. There are some people that hate him, and I get it. Totally understand it. There's some things that I don't love of his, but like, I'm always going to watch what he does as a director because he's earned that right with what he's done. And to me, that's pretty important.
Yeah. So. Well, and like last week when I was talking about Lady Killers and I was like, it still probably worked for them. It just didn't work for me. I'm sure that's how tons of people, myself included, feel about Death Proof. Yeah, I'm like, it didn't really work for me. There's moments in it that I think are fun, but I'm sure he fucking loves it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because he gets what he was trying to do.
He gets off on the grindhouse stuff for sure. I agree. Yeah, that's my least favorite of his.
Yeah, for sure.
But still has its moments, right? Like that's like you still want to see it, even if you're not going to.
Stuntman Mike's an amazing character.
That's right. Yeah. No. I mean, there's weird shit in that movie, but it's super fun. Pierre La Petite is kind of slowly breaking, right? And he's asking him pretty straightforward questions at a point.
And we don't know yet why he's so nervous.
And we finally go under the table to see the family hiding, being quiet as a mouse as possible. He knows they're there the whole time.
Of course.
And he starts asking them, he's like, they obviously don't speak English because we've been speaking it, so...
They'd be panicking by now. Yeah. That, dude... My God.
Brilliant.
On top of an already great scene, just that cherry on top. And again, back to my point of like, oh, it's a cop-out. They're speaking in English because Tarantino can't write, that great poppy dialogue in subtitles. And it's like, no, it's for a reason.
Don't you love when you get humbled so quickly like that?
I fucking love it. Love it.
I've witnessed it multiple times with you too. Whether it's lyrics in a song, and then you're like, "Oh, they just called me out for just calling them out."
I'm like, dude, they blah blah blah, and then the very next thing, and I'm like, right on.
Yep.
Fair. Yeah. And then
so you know that too.
Oh, okay, fine. And I felt that way multiple times in this movie, and just absolute. That's what I love. I love that. I love being able to feel like, and that there's pleasure in that surprise, right?
Totally. 100%. Yeah. And this scene does it. On top of the amazing acting, just like, I mean, the shooting of it's fun. There's nothing super special. I mean, it looks great for sure, but like, other than like panning down to the floorboards, there's nothing outlandish that they're shooting here. It looks just like a normal movie for the most part. Yeah. It's not like, oh, Tarantino shot that or something, but you get that. You get him he invites his crew in and talks to them in German, so they get deceived underneath and just blow the floorboards up.
Oof. And that is just
and one of them gets away, who ends up becoming one of our main characters in the movie.
And the way he waves to her and laughingly tells her he'll see her later.
Oh, yeah. What is her name again?
I can't think of it. But he's like waving and he's like so happy. Like he's like, he doesn't even, he tries to shoot her and he's like, that's okay. Like he's a happy Jew hunter. He loves his life.
He's good at what he does.
Yeah, fuck. So terrifying. Just an amazing opener, definitely.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think that you're right. I think we saw him evolve through things like Kill Bill. But the level of restraint that he shows as this being that opening
That's part
scene
of it too, right?
is like, it's a level of maturity that we hadn't seen yet. That is just, watching it again, I had to be like, okay, I can't watch the whole movie again because I got other stuff I got to do.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to.
Oh, I wanted to as well. I wanted to keep watching. Yeah.
Christoph Waltz, man.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
Yeah. What an intro. And he's had a wonderful career since this movie.
Totally.
I think he got nominated for it as well, right?
I'm pretty sure he did. Yeah.
So awesome movie. Better scene. And just a fun thing. I love these That One scenes. They're always fun to just really overanalyze one particular scene of a movie. It not only allows us to talk about the movie as a whole, but also just like how they're setting up things and just pick out those little details and scenes that we wouldn't maybe normally do in a full review because we're trying to get to other things or whatever. So,
right, exactly.
Pretty fun. We'll continue to do this. I believe our next one is going to be Network. I'm mad as hell.
I'm not going to take it anymore.
That's right. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you like and subscribe if you like what you see/hear.
And next week, we will be getting into
Complicated Failures.
The Lovely Bones.
Peter Jackson.
All right.
Join us.
Bye, you guys.